Some awards did not show up. Okay, thanks. Did you hear anything about Helen?
Good morning, everybody. Thank you all for being here today. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Laurie Snyder-Benier. I'm the Standback Dean here at the Nicholas School of the Environment, and it's my pleasure to welcome our graduates, their friends and family, to our PhD recognition ceremony. To our graduates, your family and friends, our faculty and staff, and everyone who helped make today possible, thank you for being here. And a special thank you to the team behind the scenes who made this celebration happen, particularly, and maybe you could stand up real quick so we can recognize you, Rachel, Corey, we're not sure where she's disappeared to, Jessica, and Garrett somewhere in the back with the AV, making sure that everything is streaming properly. So events like this look effortless, which is how you know a lot of effort went into them. So this is without question a day to celebrate, not just the degrees you are receiving, but the persistence, creativity, and stubborn determination it took to get here. Because let's be honest, earning a PhD is not a straight line. It's more like a winding trail with unexpected detours, a few washed out bridges, and at least one moment where you seriously considered turning around and pretending you never started. And yet you made it. Somewhere along the way, you became the person who can take messy, complicated, and often frustrating questions and say, yeah, I'll spend several years of my life figuring that out. That's not normal, and I mean that as a compliment. At some point, many of you probably fielded the classic question from family or friends. I know I did back in the day. So what exactly is it that you do? And you give your best shot, maybe a 30-second version, maybe 5-minute version, maybe a version that ended with, it's complicated. Well, today is the day when all of that complexity resolves into something simple and undeniable. You did it. Now, as you head into what comes next, postdocs, faculty positions, industry roles, nonprofits, governments, paths we probably haven't even imagined yet, it would be easy to focus on the uncertainty of this moment. And yes, the landscape you're entering has challenges. Some traditional paths are more constrained than they once were. But here's the part that hasn't changed. The problems that you are trained to tackle are not going anywhere. Climate change isn't taking a break. Biodiversity loss didn't get the memo. Environmental health challenges are not waiting for a better funding cycle. The world still needs people who can think rigorously, work across disciplines, and stay with hard problems longer than most people are willing to. In other words, it needs you. If there's one thing I've learned in my own career, it's that the path forward is rarely as planned as we imagine at this stage. The most interesting opportunities often come from unexpected places. Conversations you didn't plan to have, collaborations outside your field, moments where you say yes before you're entirely sure you should. Some of the most rewarding work I've been part of started exactly that way, with curiosity, a bit of skepticism, and a willingness to see where something might go. So yes, keep doing the things that got you here, deep thinking, careful analysis, pushing the boundaries of knowledge, but also occasionally look up. Take the meeting, follow the odd idea, talk to the person whose work you don't quite understand yet. That's often where the next chapter begins. And as you go forward, remember this. Graduating does not mean you're leaving this community behind. You are very, very much a part of it, now just distributed a bit more globally. We want to hear what you do next. We want to brag about you. And selfishly, we want to claim a little credit when you go on to do remarkable things, as we know you will. So congratulations to each of you. Today is well earned, and we can't wait to see what you do with it. Before we hear from our host of ceremonies, Prasad Kasabatla, Professor of Environmental Chemistry and Senior Associate Dean for Research and Doctoral Programs, I'm pleased to introduce our student speaker. The student speaker is selected from among the graduating PhD students to represent them and speak to you, our graduates and guests, on behalf of the graduating class. Since their advisor will formally present this student to you after their remarks, I will be brief. Siki Liang, please join me on the stage. Okay. So Siki earned her bachelor's degree in public health from Sichuan University in China. She holds an international master of environmental policy degree from the IMET program, which is a Duke program, a joint degree between the Nicholas School, the Sanford School of Public Policy, and the Duke Kunshan University in China. She's a Nicholas School certified geospatial analyst and an experienced fieldwork leader. Siki is also an enthusiastic birder. I got to read one of your papers on biodiversity and birds. Wildlife photographer and science communicator, continually exploring ways to make conservation more accessible and engaging for broader audiences. Please help me in welcoming Siki to the podium.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Siki, and I'm one of the students graduating today. I'm so glad to be standing here with all of you, classmates, faculty members, staff, family, and friends. It takes a long journey for each one of us to be here. For master students, it's a semesters of assignments, group work, and deadlines. For a PhD student like me, it was really years of day and night questioning whether will the data come through and whether will the project work out. And for faculty members, it was a lecture and a lecture delivered, write a proposal, written and rewritten, to make sure the project's going on and the students support it. And for family and friends, it was years, long time, long distance phone calls, late night worries, patient waiting, and until finally, the crying baby you once held has arrived at this milestone. For everyone who have helped us achieve here, arrive here, thank you. We didn't arrive here alone. At the same time, I'm fully aware, we young environmental scientists and practitioners, we're graduating into a world with great uncertainty. Funding is uncertain, climate change is uncertain, and what the world will look like in 10 and 5 and 10 years is profoundly uncertain too. So I have been asking myself a different question lately. What in our lives and careers we're deeply certain of?
Speak in here because they can't hear you on the live stream. I'm so sorry.
Yeah. What's in our lives and careers we are deeply certain of? There are two things I'm sure. First, our hard-earned skills are certain, and the world really needs them. Geospatial analysis, statistics, policy analysis, field work. We spend countless hours in computer labs wrestling with ArcGIS Pro until the maps still to tell the stories by their own. We went into the field and many times on the boat, collecting data in fair weather and in storms. And many times, we dive into dense documents, we review them, and we listen to many voices until we can see the big picture, and we can dance them into actionable policies and the real practices. All these things are solid skills and practice and experiences that the AI can never compete with. AI cannot walk into a forest and within a heartbeat know what should not belong there and what is missing. AI cannot sit within the community and earn their trust. And many times, when I push AI to support me with my frontier environmental researches, it hits a wall until I walk in and I point out the unknown unknowns that only a trained mind can see. I know technology developments like AI is going to change many people's lives, but I'm very, very sure this class graduating here today will be the ones benefited from all these developments rather than being replaced by them. And the second, most importantly, we are certain of each other. As a student, get both master's and a PhD from here, I have fallen in love with many things of the Nicholas School. The Steinbeck Orchard is a fabulous place to pick up fresh pears. The Granger Hall seminar pizzas are just delicious. But if I have to pick out just the one thing I love the most, it's a community. It's a brilliant community. It's often a question people ask during a seminar, later turn into a valuable publication. As a vibrant community, there's always interesting conversations and field works going on. And above all, it is really a community that the people deeply support each other. I still remember the night I was so close to miss the deadline of my remote sensing final project. That semester, I have TOEFL, GRE, PhD application, all kinds of things going on, and I only had one night left to finish my final project. And the three of my classmates noticed that I was struggling, I was drowning, and they sat next to me in the computer lab, one after another, to keep me going through every step until I can pass with confidence. I still feel grateful today. No matter what happens to this world, these are the people I'm going to hold in my life. My dear class of 2026, no matter what uncertainty this world goes through, remember, you have the hard skills the world needs, and we have each other. Hold on to that. Hold on to both. Good luck and goodbye. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. As Dean Maria said, I am Prasad Kasi-Batla, Professor of Environmental Chemistry and Associate Dean of Research and Doctoral Programs here at the Nicholas School of the Environment. And I have the pleasure of serving as your host today. So now is the time you all have been waiting for, the recognition of degree candidates. This is a joyous occasion. So rather than ask you to hold your applause until the end, we invite you to express your support and enthusiasm when you feel like it. We also encourage photos, laughter, and a great time. There'll also be plenty of time for photographs during the reception. So let's get started. This year, we have 2 Master of Science and 24 Doctor of Philosophy graduates from 1 certificate and 5 graduate programs. While some of these graduates have already left for jobs and postdoctoral work, today we have the pleasure of hearing about 17 of our incredible graduates. These students represent the best minds in the school, dedicating their lives to research and teaching, to educating the next generation of environmental champions, and discovering new ways to ensure the health and future of our world. So in the course of the next 45 to 50 minutes or so, each student's faculty advisor will share a few comments about their graduates and their accomplishments. Now, these advisors have served as mentors, friends, champions, cheerleaders of these students over the course of their journeys. So I'm sure they have a lot to say. But in the interest of time, I'm going to ask these advisors to limit their remarks to 2 to 3 minutes so we can accommodate everybody. So advisors, please come to the stage in the order you're called. And graduates, please join your advisors as they come up. Doctors Jim Zhang, Joel Meyer, Sari Pomrod, Nishad Jayasundara, Jean-Philippe Gibert, Stuart Pym, and Bill Pan will first present graduates from our environment program. Faculty were supposed to come up when their name is called. So go ahead.
Go ahead. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Good morning. So I will start with introducing Emily Craig. Emily, are you there? Here you go. Come up. All right. Emily came to Duke as a PhD student in 2021, correct? From New England, where she worked and her family lives. She did a dissertation on human placenta, a very interesting work looking into air pollution effects on inflammation, oxidative stress, and DNA methylation pathways in the placenta. That work generated 4 first author papers. And in the same time, she worked on lots of other things, supporting other projects, and she has 5 co-authored papers that is already published, the more to come. So I can spend a long day to talk about Emily because she brought so much fun to our lab. But I would, have a limited time. I just to say, everybody knows she's a social butterfly. And she had, one of the, actually the largest audience of PhD defense that I have attended, probably close to 100 people. Really? I don't know, online, or maybe 60. That including people I talked to, there are family members, of course, high school classmates, and a high school teacher, That's quite amazing. And also, she's a certified wedding officiant. I don't remember how many times you attended a wedding during your 5 years, but maybe you can tell me. And she is really a family sweetheart. That's according to your parents when I checked with them. And part of the reason is she will be returning to New England as a postdoc at Dartmouth, starting soon. So that's a good next step towards her goal to become a professor one day. So at Duke, she mentored 2 high school students from NCSSM, and she taught actually environmental capstone class for one time. So I received really high remarks from all the students. So I have no doubt Dr. Craig will be a great Professor Craig someday. So we will miss you, and good luck with everything. I will make sure you come to visit us. Yihui? All right. Yihui joined our PhD program in 2020. You remember 2020, that's the peak of the pandemic. She was just a freshly graduated with a master's degree in epidemiology from Fudan University in Shanghai, as she could not come to Duke in that year. So he spent his first year at DKU. So thanks to the DKU for accommodating our students during those special times. So despite all those challenges, during the pandemic, many other things, really limiting international travel. His home was back in China, but he was able to finish a dissertation within 5 years plus a little bit of summer. So on time according to our original plan. And it was amazing that his productivity was so great, with the dissertation generating 4 first author papers, and he supported many other collaborated projects because he has a data analytical skill set that generate air pollution estimates and all kinds of models. So because of that, he had 25 calls for papers during the PhD study. I think that's record-breaking. His dissertation was the susceptibility to air pollution by sex in populations with different age ranges. And so immediately following his PhD defense, he started a postdoc at Emory University, where he really now get a chance to analyze a very big data set, those multi-omics-based data, which that group has that resource of data, and that he can use his skill set to help teasing out those very complex exposure contributions to various disease outcomes. This is the research direction he wanted to pursue, and he find that place. So I'm so pleased with that. Of course, his long-term goal is to become a academic researcher professor someday. So I think you are in the very good path towards that goal. Okay, and so on other side, I have lots to talk about Yihui, but I would just mention that he's a very good Chinese. He does very beautiful Chinese calligraphy. If you wanted him to write something for you, all right, take your chance. And he cooks delicious food, but just to make sure, no gingers and no cilantro. So we miss you. We have already missed you in the group. You're a friend of everybody, and we will continue to miss you.
I thought there might have been a third from Dr. Zhang, so I took a minute there. Good morning, everybody. My name is Joel Meyer, and I have the pleasure of talking about Dr. Christina Bergeman's work in my laboratory. Yeah. Yes, that's right. Christina earned a bachelor's degree in science in environmental science from UNC Chapel Hill. We did not hold that against her. She did quite a bit of fantastic work after that. She worked with BaseTrace, doing DNA tracing for environmental monitoring, the NC, North Carolina Cooperative Extension, looking at water quality monitoring downstream of hog lagoons, and then Emily Bernhardt and my lab afterwards as a technician. So when she then joined the lab as a PhD student, she had a great deal of maturity as well as a large amount of her own interests. She was really interested in environmental microbiology. I don't know anything about environmental microbiology, and so that was interesting and fun. She decided to propose a project that really stretched the boundaries of what I knew about, but it fit really nicely at the same time with what my lab does do. And I think it's really to her credit that she was able to take this new idea and work in a really creative, independent way. She read deeply in the literature. She talked to the right people. She got the right people on her committee to complement what I didn't know and be able to come up with a really, really interesting hypothesis, which was that the gut microbiome would alter the energetics, the energy of the host animal, in this case C. elegans, a small worm we work with in the lab, and that this would in turn alter the susceptibility of those worms to chemical exposure, which is really what we study. We study how pollutants affect health. And so she asked this unique question of how could the gut microbiome, or would the gut microbiome affect the response to chemical exposure because of changing energetics? I will admit I was a little bit skeptical, but she was absolutely right. She found a threefold change in ATP levels. You may remember from high school classes, ATP is the energy currency of the cell. A threefold change in ATP levels as a result of different microbiomes, and this then conveyed a really strong difference in response to rotenone, an important pesticide, as well as other chemicals, demonstrating that in fact there was a really exciting story here. If you're wondering what's sort of the big picture of importance of this, I think the key here is that if all of us were exposed to the same thing, we would respond differently. And we don't fully understand why. Part of that is genetic differences, but part of that is very likely, in fact, to be the gut microbiome. And what's cool about that is that's something we can change. Can't change our genetics very easily, but that's something that we can do something about. So I think that's really, really exciting. She published tons of papers, both from her previous work as a technician in various labs, including several first author papers, which is quite unusual in those positions, as well, of course, as her work in my lab. She's now contributing to the understanding of what might we do about microbiome and how that could affect our health as a postdoc in the Siddiqui lab at the Duke Medical Center. So she's still here nearby looking at microbiome host interactions in the female bladder with a focus on how beneficial bacteria in the bladder microbiome may be used as probiotics to help prevent recurrent urinary tract infections. I had to read that part because I didn't want to get it wrong. I also want to highlight that Christina did all this work while acting as a wonderful mentor to many undergrads. I'll read a quote. Christina was truly one of the best mentors I could have asked for, and there's no way I would have been able to write my thesis or do any of the work in the lab without her grace and patience. I am so lucky to have been able to work with her, something we all agree with. She mentored many others in the lab as well as undergrads, teaching new methods, leading by example with really careful, thoughtful experimental design, good questions for others to improve their work. And then finally, I should mention that she did all of this while also getting married and having a beautiful child. Christina, it was a joy to have you in the lab, to see you develop into a creative, rigorous, really thoughtful, excellent scientist. We wish you the best moving forward. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sari Palmroth, and I have the pleasure and honor to introduce Janie. So, dear Dr. Borowski, Janie. So, I served on your PhD committee and got to be here today because your primary advisor, Ram Oren, never attends to any of his students' graduation ceremonies. And this is just one of the rules his students must navigate. As Ram hinted during Janie's PhD defense, which he did attend, any student who makes it through a PhD with him should receive an additional diploma. I agree, and I speak from long experience. Learning to work with others, including demanding advisors, committee members, and co-authors, is one of the most important skills to be gained during PhD, in my mind. We might love these exchanges and interactions or hate them, but in the process, we come to understand ourselves better. We improve our ability to receive and give feedback, and we learn to do science. Along the way, questions are asked, experiments are designed, sensors are built, data analyzed, models run, puzzles solved, and papers written. Working with you, Janie, reminded me how much fun all this can be, particularly this puzzle-solving part of it. Who would not want to know answers to questions like this? Is water loss from leaves in tree canopies mostly driven by how much sunlight they receive? Or is it more limited by the hydraulic path length from roots to leaves? Does it even matter? When does it matter? And how do you even begin to study that? So if any of this sparks your curiosity, I recommend reading Janie's papers. I will end with a few reflections on the past 6 years. Janie, when you started at Duke, we were at the height of the pandemic, as we just heard, with online classes and meetings, empty buildings. I cannot think of a more surreal way to begin a PhD program in a new environment. It took me a while to get to know you, but I'm very glad I did. Over the years, you have become a scientist and a collaborator of the best kind. You are curious and persistent, hardworking and resilient. You're also kind and generous. And last but not least, how can it be so difficult? You shine in front of a class. Your students absolutely love you. Good luck.
I was hoping not to cry, but I'm already crying, so. Hello, everyone. I'm Nishad Jayasundara. I'm an assistant professor in the Nicholas School, and I'm here to present 2 PhD students. First, Emily Green. Although I'm presenting these students not in the order in which she joined the lab and graduated. So Emily is the second PhD student to graduate from my lab since joining Duke. And as you can imagine, every time you move into a new position and start a new lab, essentially you have nothing, and you expect some help from the people who are joining your group to hopefully cultivate some of those seeds of ideas that you have. And I couldn't have asked for 2 better students to be my first 2 PhD students. One of them is Dr. Emily Green, who really took this one project we had in mind and ran with it and discovered that this really important piece of developmental biology where the microbiome that exists in the environment is influencing how animals develop inside an egg, even before that microbiome is coming into contact with that developing animal. So there are some mysterious molecules that are traveling through the environment in some shape or form that's influencing how little cells are developing and growing into animals. And Emily discovered that and has done a ton of work after that to really take that work forward in multiple different directions, including trying to understand how chemical interactions and also how we evolve resistance to these chemicals are manifested through that microbiome development, animal development interaction. So really amazing work and really formed the foundation for my lab to grow that type of research into the future in that direction. Before joining us, Emily was at University of Miami, and I remember talking to her again during the pandemic or over a Zoom call, interviewing her, and she was telling me that she was an ORISE fellow at the US EPA, which is an incredibly hard fellowship to get. And she was also a Noah Hollings fellow, which is also a hard fellowship to get. And she also had made the dean's list, the provost honor roll, the president's list at University of Miami. And I thought I'm never going to be able to keep her busy if she comes to my lab. And she did keep herself busy. And I would tell her sometimes, Emily, take a break, go somewhere. And she would say, well, I just came back from New Zealand. I just hiked these 3 mountains. So, as you can tell, Emily is an incredibly hardworking, incredibly committed individual, published multiple papers, including a couple of really significant first author papers. And she shared her work in many national and international conferences, often getting selected to give platform presentations, and also spent many hours in the lab helping grow other lab members and helping them with their work and projects, and most importantly, also developing a board game along the way together with our community engagement colleagues, where she would get the middle school, young elementary and middle school children to play a game about environmental resilience. And that was an incredible amount of effort that went into, besides her thesis work. So all of that also brought her to become a recipient of the Forever Duke Award. So many congratulations, Emily. And she's now off to becoming a data scientist, and I'm glad she's staying in the area. So we will miss you, and thank you for helping me grow as a PI and help the lab grow and help your peers grow. So thank you again. And now it's my pleasure to introduce my first PhD student to graduate from the lab, who is Dr. Ilaria Merutka, who is currently a postdoctoral researcher at the National Institutes of Environmental Health, which is also down the road. If you're not noticing the trend, I'm keeping everybody still in the family and not letting them go too far. She is, as I mentioned, as the first student joining the lab. I also talked to her online, virtually, and we connected over a Zoom call. And I very quickly realized I will also have a hard time keeping her busy because she had done an extensive amount of undergraduate research at University of Chicago, where she graduated with honors in biochemistry and chemistry, and had done a ton of research in cell molecular stress response biology at multiple institutes, while also taking care of her father along the way, who left her family, unfortunately. But I realized at that time when she shared that information that she would be the type of person that I want to have in my lab, who can help us also grow as a lab and take care of everybody. And little did she know how much caring she had to give. She definitely had what we call the first child syndrome, where she had to be the best at what she did, but also be a role model, but also make mistakes and realize how to fix those mistakes and teach everyone else in the lab how to fix their mistakes. And she continues to do that despite leaving the lab, and she continues to be present for all the lab members and helping them with their work. In terms of her dissertation research, she took on one of the most complex challenges in environmental biology, environmental toxicology, where she tried to understand how chemicals affect us through life. So she did all of these experiments that took at least 3 to 6 months to finish in terms of each experiment, and we wouldn't know what is going to happen in that window of time. So she persisted and worked really hard and generated some incredible data that really helped us better understand how chemicals in the environment influence our kidney health, which she was able to directly translate to communities in many parts of the world and try and inform those communities about health problems that those communities face. So she was not only a bench scientist, but also doing work that really mattered to people around the world, and worked with many teams at odd hours, waking up at 5 a.m. and saying, Nishad, I don't like getting up in the morning, but I will do it. So I think all of that work is reflected in a number of papers she's published, including 2 first author papers, including developing a new approach to determine bad chemicals in a chemical mixture, also winning several awards, including Young Investigator Abstract Award at the International Workshop on Developmental Nephrology. But I think the biggest triumph for her in my lab was that she came in with an absolute fear of fish. And we are a fish lab, and she has gotten over that fear over the last 6 years and is now able to take a fish out of a tank, and that is an accomplishment. But I think the last thing I will say is that Ilaria is the type of student you want next to you when you have a terrible idea, because she will call you out on it. I will tell her, why do you think about this? We should do this work. And she would say, Nishad, that's not going to work. And then she'd go home, text me back and say, I think this is why it's not going to work, and this is why it will work. And then we'd have a fantastic conversation that led us to many discoveries later on. So thank you, Ilaria, again so much.
Morning, folks. I'm Jean Gibert, professor of biology, and it's my great pleasure to say a few words about Ankita Gupta today, Dr. Gupta. So I'm representing Brian Silliman today, Ankita's advisor, and I have to apologize to you twice. First, Brian wants to apologize for not being here and not being able to give you a high five, and I'm quoting. And I'm apologizing to you because you got the shorter, dumber, less accomplished version of Brian Silliman to do this. Arguably, I've got better hair. And so Brian's words are, Ankita joined the Silliman lab under atypical circumstances, which is fitting because she's anything but typical. She's, in fact, exceptional in many, many ways. When her original advisor moved to the Nature Conservancy, she had to find a new academic home midway, her PhD, and we all know that that is exceedingly hard to do. When she joined the lab, she had already collected an impressive data set from freshwater wetlands in India, examining how habitat structure shapes bird diversity. And when she talked to me, Brian, my reaction, imagine I'm Brian, was unequivocal. This was a strong, independent researcher that would address important conservation questions, and I absolutely had to take her in. But I also encouraged her to step back and ask whether the data could itself address broader ecological theory and tackle bigger questions still. And what Ankita did next was remarkable, and I immediately learned that this was Dr. Gupta's signature move. In a short time, she came back to me with a much more ambitious and conceptually rich framework, which she then addressed thoroughly and with impressive clarity of thought. Her dissertation ultimately integrates species-area relationships, foundation species, and food web theory into a cohesive unit that has important consequences for conservation of endangered wetlands and the species they harbor. And if I go over 3 minutes, it's Brian's fault. The kind of work that both addresses important immediate questions while illuminating the path that absolutely needs to be followed next, and that I know, again, I being Brian, but I can attest to this, will have an impact on both ecology and conservation science. Along the way, Dr. Gupta proved herself to be an exceptional writer and outstanding quantitative thinker, which is a rare and powerful combination. And I, now being me, I can absolutely attest to this. And just as importantly, she has been a wonderful colleague, thoughtful, generous with her time, and deeply engaged in the life of the lab. And we have been, and I include myself, extremely fortunate to have played even a small role in her career. And I'll close by sharing that Ankita has recently been awarded a Dean's Postdoctoral Fellowship at Yale, an honor that is both well-reserved and a clear sign for what's to come. And I have no doubt that she has an exciting future in ecology and conservation, and we both very much look forward to working with her in the years to come. Congratulations.
I am going to do this as a duet with my co-supervisor colleague, Professor Binbin Lee from Duke University, Kunshan. I first met Sichi lecturing in one of Professor Lee's classes. Sichi said she wanted to come and do a PhD with me, and well, you know, back in classic times, people would leave their children out at night on the hills, and if they survived until the following morning, you knew they had the right stuff. So Binbin and I decided that we should take Sichi into the eastern Himalayas of Sichuan to see if she could do field work, and clearly she survived and had the right stuff. So the first part of Sichi's PhD, we heard about biodiversity. We are losing biodiversity at an unprecedented rate. And we know there are key places in the world that matter more than others. That is what we call alpha biodiversity, just simply the number of species you find there. But we also know a key component of that is how species change over space. If you go to the next hillside, you get a different set of species. And so for the first time, Sichi mapped that out using the sort of state-of-the-art crowdsourcing and GIS technology that we have, and an extraordinarily important paper which has now appeared in the leading conservation journal, Conservation Biology. But I also wanted Sichi to get some practical field experience. And for that, we decided on tea. Now, we British have a special relationship with tea. You may recall that you Americans did some very unpleasant things with tea. And as you heard from our king last week, when you do things like that, we come and burn the White House down. And, let's understand each other. If you think that was bad, what we British did to China when we wanted its tea was considerably worse. So I think it's political of me to hand this talk now over to my Chinese colleague so she can explain what Sichi has been doing with tea.
Thank you, Stuart. It's kind of hard to follow that. But I would say Sichi is the bravest young woman I've ever met. She actually quitted her first PhD and came to do a master with us at Duke Kunshan University. So she knows when to stop and when to pursue a new direction. And I'm pretty honored to have this journey together with Sichi. And also, she became the most knowledgeable people in the forest tea area in the world, I can say for sure. Yes. And also, she has secured the most important research funding for this project, but also dealt very cleverly with the most difficult funder in my whole life, who do not even ask you to pay for a cheaper transportation than what you have written in your proposal. So with this kind of pain in the ass, and she cleverly navigate through the complicated landscape. So with that skill, I have no doubts you can deal with every founder in the world in the future. And also, she challenged the results from AI models and then used her good expertise in birding and then tried to improve the model and give a really good protocol for the following peers and also researchers who want to use similar methods. So there is a good foundation of methodology like advancement City has created. And also during this project, she has discovered a secret business in her family, which they have a very important business in tea sector. So she pulled all the strings together and tried to make the field work like smoothly moving forward. And I think that is a very important skill in the current status with limited resources and finding every possible connection to make things work. So with that, you are going to embark a new journey, and I have no doubt you will become a successful conservation scientist and then change the world and change others.
All right. We're saving the best environment for the last, although there's other divisions. So I am very happy to present Rishma Nargand, Dr. Rishma Nargand. Susan Murphy is the co-advisor. She's over here as well. I have unorganized thoughts, but they're centered around two things that I think Rishma exhibits every day, which is how do you problem solve and how do you be resilient? And she's one of the best students I've ever had to demonstrate this repeatedly. And there's two things that I can really think about on how she did this. So she started in September, right, 2018, 2 years before the pandemic, and many years before the new PhD unionization that increased salaries, which was great. But at the time, she was a regular PhD student. We had planned on doing this project on gold mining, and it was going to be in the Peruvian Amazon. And she had to dive into understanding this because she came to Duke wanting to do research on air pollution. And I kind of said,
no, I don't really do that, but if you can integrate it into gold mining, great. So what she did was she put together a Basque Connections team, went to Ghana, which we had no study site in. She went there for the summer of 2019, and she designed a study to understand for herself how mercury and lead exposure occur during gold mining. How does mercury and lead cycle in the environment, whether it's through the air, through the fish, the water, whatever. She did blood testing, urine testing, all sorts of different biomarkers. And at the end of 2019, at the end of that summer, we kind of got together. We thought, okay, there's going to be some really interesting things we can do here to compare the birth cohort that we're designing in the Peruvian Amazon and compare it to what was happening in Ghana. And then the pandemic happened, right? And then as a starving PhD student, right, we couldn't get food. And we were thinking, like, we would have lab meetings, right? We were thinking, like, what are we going to do about getting people food? And she's like, oh, I'm a food forager. Why don't we take the lab out and get some food? And so she took us out, and she would do this regularly, where she goes out and collects mushrooms, fruits, vegetables. It doesn't even have to be in the forest. It can be on the side of the road. It can be on the albular trail. It can be anywhere you go. And she has an eye to find food for people. It's actually quite amazing. So she really kind of was very resilient at the time that we had trouble getting food during the pandemic to figure this out. But the real problem came for her to see kind of how she problem solves and how she becomes resilient is when she was working in Ghana and she was planning in Peru. I mean, I don't know if anybody's worked internationally, but it's extremely difficult to work in some of these environments and to build networks. And, you know, Rishma, in just those two countries, was coordinating with 12 to 15 institutions, probably 50 people, communicating in Spanish, talking to folks in Ghana, and getting this project organized. She did her prelim defense around this idea to look at our birth cohort in the Amazon and understand how mercury and lead exposure changed DNA methylation profiles in children being born for women exposed during pregnancy. And then when the pandemic happened, all of that blew up. All of the projects internationally stopped. We decided to be patient and said, let's wait to see what happens. But after several months, her visa expired. She couldn't go back to those countries before going back to India to renew her visa. She had to figure that out. We had to figure out how we navigate her going to India, which she couldn't even get an appointment with the US Embassy that was guaranteed. So it was fly to India, wait as long as you can to figure out when you can renew your visa, then we'll bring you back, and then we'll figure out what we do with Peru and Ghana. But all that was time that was going to be wasted. So I asked her, like, what are some other options? And Rishma, being extremely resourceful, reached out to Susan and started different discussions about a different birth cohort here in Durham, where she was able to use some of the interests she had in air pollution. And, you know, the dissertation that she has written on the program, which she didn't plan, she had to start from scratch around 2022. So after 3 or 4 years of being here, she started from zero. I've never seen that happen. And she handled that beautifully. It's been pretty incredible. I can't be more proud of the things that she's done. I would say, you know, other than just, you know, finishing her dissertation, she's also started her own company right now. She runs this company called Wildflower and Data Analytics. Yeah, that's what it's called. Sorry, I sometimes forget. I'm on sabbatical, so I'm not always with it these days. But you know, she's been able to reinvent herself so many times. I am very confident that you know, whatever your next step is and how you navigate it, you're going to be very successful. So thanks so much.
Okay. Drs. Abner Vengosh and Brad Murray will now present graduates from our Earth and Climate Sciences program.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. My name is Avner Vengosh, and I'm going to present 3 people in the next 3 hours. First, I would like to invite Dr. Robert Hill. Revenge time. So it is my honor to congratulate and present Dr. Robert Hill for his PhD graduation. Robert arrived to Duke 5 years ago and completed his very impressive PhD thesis titled Geochemistry of Phosphate Rocks and Fertilizer, Implication for the Region and Environmental Impact. His research was on using multiple isotopes, and you name it, strontium, uranium, calcium, and radium, to understand the origin of phosphate rock through geological time, all the way to evaluate the environmental impact of phosphate fertilizer we use every day in our garden. Also, he was looking at the ability to trace contaminant in phosphate fertilizer in soil and crops. Basically, his research was integrating studying environmental and geochemical condition of phosphate rock through geological time, all the way for tracing contaminants in the food that we eat today. He ended up with publishing 4 scientific papers, 5th in the way, maybe, and which were part of his PhD thesis. Robert was very instrumental in the lab and developed new analytical techniques for chemical and isotopic analysis that raised the performance of our lab really tremendously. Robert also loves to teach, and he actually developed a new class at Duke about aquatic biogeochemistry, and which was pretty rare among students to kind of come up and have their own classes and teaching undergrad at Duke. Gingy and I will miss Robert a lot into the future, and I will also miss his very strange sense of humor. Finally, his journey to Durham resulted not only getting a PhD, but also meeting Robbie. And I would like to extend my warmest congratulations for Robert and Robbie for their upcoming wedding. So Robert is going to be very successful in the future, wherever he goes, and is going to charm everyone like he did to me. Gordon Williams. It's so scary. It is my honor to congratulate Dr. Gordon Williams for his PhD graduation. Gordon arrived 6 years ago and generated a state-of-the-art PhD thesis titled The Aquatic Geochemistry of Lithium Deposits and the Environmental Effect of Lithium Mining. His research was studying the origin of lithium brine and the lithium triangle of South America, as well as understanding the potential environmental effect of mining lithium in both hard rocks in North Carolina and lithium brine in Bolivia. Although starting his thesis during COVID time, Gordon was very persistent to conduct research on one of the most important topics of the 21st century, the availability and sustainability of lithium, of critical mineral such as lithium, that is so important for the green energy transition. Through integrating extensive fieldwork in Bolivia, and when I say extensive fieldwork, is taking bikes to go over the salt plant and get it to places nobody else can go, working in the lab, developing new isotope tracers like lithium, boron, and strontium, and also deep into geochemical modeling that nobody else understands but himself. Gordon was able to really build the fundamental conceptual idea of why there are lithium resources, why those brines are formed, and how we can look and extract them sustainably without affecting the environment. He's worked really impressively in addition to many other papers, as a first author, he was published 7 papers in leading journals, which are going to have impact into the future. One thing personal, Gordon is the person you want to like to have when you are in the field. He has a very small bag, and in his bag he carries all the necessary things you need during crisis. And of course, you're going to have crisis in 12,000 above sea level elevation in Salar de Uyuni in Bolivia. But having Gordon next to you, you're going to be safe. It will be really hard to see the lab going without Gordon present. We try to avoid him going away, but we're going to fail on that. And I'm going to miss him a lot. Congratulations. Hannah Woodke. It is my honor to congratulate Hannah Woodke for her master graduation. Hannah arrived to Duke 2 years ago with NSF, graduate student, and the Dean Fellowship. Pretty rare to get both. Her master thesis, titled Baseline Water Quality and Geochemical Factor that Control Shallow Groundwater Used by Indigenous Community in the Vicinity of Salar de Uyuni in Bolivia. Hannah's work was looking at how communities living next to the largest lithium resource in the world can face future lithium exploration. This is kind of issues that we all need those critical mineral resources, but there are people living there. And how those people will affect, those exploration will affect them, this is one of the tasks that Hannah took. And she looked to sample groundwater and drinking water of those communities living in those areas. So in spite of really rough condition, if this is a high Altipano desert, we're talking about 12,000 meters above sea level, Hannah conducted extensive field work and water sampling that end up with an important study of the water quality risk facing those communities. And she also kind of evaluated what is the likelihood of this water quality degradation upon further developing of lithium resources in those areas. Her thesis really demonstrates that our ability to extract lithium for the green energy transition depends primarily on the awareness and ability to protect water resources for the local communities. So, and she was able to show that for the first time, basically, how water quality can be affected. We're going to miss Hannah a lot in the lab, but she's ready for her next journey. She's going to walk, literally, between Mexico and Canada for the next couple of months, a different journey to take. Congratulations, Hannah.
I'm Brad Murray, and I'm really fortunate to get to speak about Ningxia Hu, Dr. Ningxia Hu, in this context. Ningxia came to us with a master's degree from UT Austin, and she came to us as an already very capable researcher. And our interactions were already really fun as research advisor and advisee, and that was just wonderful. And over the years, Ningxia's evolved beyond that into a very capable, independent, thoughtful researcher, and our interactions have evolved into more of a collaboration than an advisor-advisee, and that's just a wonderful thing to witness and be part of and feel, and I've enjoyed that greatly and look forward to more. Ningxia's achieved all this through a fair amount of adversity. So she arrived by herself just in time for her second semester to include the pandemic shutdown and all of the isolation that followed for so long. And Then sometime after that, Ningxia and her relatively new husband, Ang, they got married in the Duke Chapel, had the great fortune to have the wonderful, wonderful baby Hudson, who's now a toddler and needs to go toddle somewhere for a minute, perhaps. Although we don't mind a little Hudson interaction at all. So, a baby, of course, is always a mix of miracle and adversity, and hopefully almost always much more miracle than adversity. But in this case, there was also, along with clearly a whole lot of miracle, more than Ningxia's share of adversity. And through all this, she has managed to do some really, really cool science. She initially was using numerical modeling experiments to address some really interesting questions about how deltas work, how river delta, how they evolve over time, what their dynamics look like, and specifically how river delta dynamics in shape interact with ocean waves. And after that, among other things, Ningxia started a project, or led us in the direction of a project that is observational. She's managed to analyze satellite observations to look at deltas around the world, a handful of deltas, and focusing in the end primarily on the Mississippi River Delta to address hypotheses, to really test a couple of hypotheses for what causes rivers to jump course, or what determines the location where rivers, every now and then, it's called an avulsion, a river on a delta just flips to a new course and the river mouth goes somewhere else. And as you can imagine, for a delta that's as heavily developed as the Mississippi and many other deltas, where a city suddenly stops becoming a port city, when that happens, this is a topic it's both scientifically really timely and of interest beyond academia, clearly. And this project involves a lot of analyzing satellite data, for which I am no use at all. And so Ningxia had to develop collaborations that have been really fun with some new colleagues. And this is a project that Ningxia has not just instigated, but led. And that's been really, really fun. Along the way, she's also been mixing in numerical model development, further model development, and more experiments to address really how these interactions between river dynamics and river deltas operate in general, so that it can be generalized beyond particular deltas that Ningxia's been analyzing. So it's been just a great pleasure. Ningxia is a wonderful human as well as an excellent scientist, and that makes the collaborations extra fun, and I really hope we get to keep that going into the future, and congratulations.
I now invite Doctors David Gill, Pat Halpin, and Andy Reed to present graduates from our Marine Science and Conservation program.
It is my pleasure to present Dr. Greco. And today I'm not presenting a graduate, and I'll tell you why at the end. So Dana's PhD, using systems-based approaches and systems thinking to understand the impacts that climate vulnerable fisheries experience and their social and ecological impacts. I saw someone who is competent, who's able to complete a PhD and lead one of the largest literature synthesis I've ever been part of and coordinate a multi-year, multi-institutional effort. I see an overcomer, one who was able to navigate one of the most complex times for our PhD students to overcome these issues related to COVID, setting fieldwork back, mold damage in her home, as well as a very difficult advisor. And one who not only cares about herself, but help others overcome, and supporting many within a rural coastal community that was devastated by a hurricane. And I see someone who's committed, someone who has a strong social and moral responsibility, who doesn't just want her name on papers. She wants to make a difference. And so her research on ways that we can empower climate vulnerable fisheries and managers to address some of their major challenges that they're facing. Someone who's committed to inclusive research, and one of the best mentors I've ever seen to take a class of students through a multi-year effort such as this. And then someone who is able to do all of this together in a time such as this. So combine someone who is competent, an overcomer, and committed, who will be able to thoughtfully and genuinely lead the next generation of scientists. I don't present to you a graduate, I present to you a change leader in this world. Thank you.
All right. So I'm here to present Jonathan John Choi. All right. Prepared some written remarks so I'd stay on schedule, so we'll try. John's dissertation was titled Migratory Shorebirds and Wind Energy Development Near the Gulf of Mexico. John came to Duke to work at the intersection of science, management, governance, of critical species and their habitats. This journey took him to pursue both a Juris Doctorate, JD, from Duke Law, as well as a PhD in Marine Science and Conservation. So he's now completing the second of these two Duke graduate degrees. Good work, John. John was especially interested in establishing linkages between species, their habitats, and the legal and governance frameworks that allow us to manage these critical species. John took on a dissertation topic looking at the long-range migration of shorebirds to investigate the routes and risks these birds take through their seasonal migrations. These shorebirds fly from habitats in South America through the shores of the Gulf of Mexico, through the fragmented agricultural and wetland habitats of the Midwest, en route to feeding grounds in the northern Arctic. These migratory journeys are becoming increasingly more challenging with increasing wind energy development. The common overlap of shorebird flyways and wind energy development is correlated with consistent wind speeds. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out birds like wind and wind farms like wind. So they're probably going to intersect. So it's an issue, and it's a management issue, and it's a very practical but also fundamental scientific question as well. As a society facing increasing needs for renewable energy development, we need to both preserve migratory flyways and renewable wind energy. A special challenge is that sustainable management of shorebird populations require management of interventions and legal oversight across multiple jurisdiction boundaries across multiple continents. A single bird may encounter wind turbines in Brazil, Texas, the Dakotas, the Canadian provinces on their way to their Arctic Alaskan feeding grounds. These birds also pass through fragmented habitats, but also fragmented legal jurisdictions as well. So this is where John is pursuing both a PhD in science and a law degree. To investigate this issue, John mapped bird telemetry tracks across their migratory paths to estimate the potential for encountering existing wind energy development. He also developed estimates for potential future offshore wind development in the Gulf. This work gives us a more complete picture of the potential risks of management needs for these endangered shorebirds through their full life history. This work is both relevant and emblematic of the types of broader perspectives we need to take on to resolve complex environmental management problems into the future. John has now completed both a JD and PhD, focusing on building the complementary and coupled toolboxes that are needed to attack complex environmental science, management, and legal challenges. John is on an exciting trajectory to make real change in this field. Congratulations, John.
Morning, everybody. My name is Andy Reid. I'm one of the faculty members at the Duke Marine Lab, and I'm Canadian. And Canadians, as Ani know, I'm here to introduce Ani. And Canadians are rule followers, so I'm going to read, so I will stay within the 3 minutes, unlike almost all of my faculty colleagues. So here we go. We talk a lot about interdisciplinarity here at the Nicholas School and at Duke, but it's rare for a PhD student to truly embrace an interdisciplinary dissertation. And that's because to do so, you need to demonstrate competence or excellence in more than one discipline. And that means 2 disciplines, twice the amount of time, twice the amount of effort. Ani's dissertation research involved a critical examination of the narrative that bottlenose dolphins have returned to the Potomac River estuary, just downstream from the nation's capital, because of successful ecosystem restoration efforts that have been made in the Chesapeake Bay. To examine whether this appealing idea is true or not, Ani employed approaches from both the social and natural sciences. Working with one of the social scientists at the Marine Lab, Grant Murray, Ani conducted interviews with local watermen to understand whether dolphins had been present in their living memory. And you can imagine how much work it was to persuade those individuals to sit down for interviews. To extend the historical reach of her work, she conducted an exhaustive analysis of literally tens of thousands of newspaper records dating back to 1787. And to understand what the dolphins are doing there today, she used traditional natural science methods like the approaches I use, things like surveys, behavioral sampling, and photo identification to track individuals over time and see where else they had been seen. Taken together, Ani's dissertation shows that bottlenose dolphins have actually been present in the Potomac River and the Chesapeake Bay since at least the 1800s. Overlooked, but present. Although their range has contracted a little bit near Washington, perhaps due to degraded water quality. But today, more than 1,000 dolphins live in the Chesapeake Bay every summer, moms and calves, having their lives in that environment. So this attractive idea of dolphins having returned to the Chesapeake Bay because of improvements in water quality turns out to be false. I think we should celebrate Ani's dissertation for its interdisciplinarity, for the breadth and depth that taking both approaches allowed her to provide for a richer picture than either a natural or social science approach could have done on their own. And personally, I'm really proud of her for her commitment to ensuring that the voices of the watermen that she interviewed make their way into the management system, for her passion for conducting fieldwork, and for her enduring commitment and love to the animals, places, and people that she studied. And in many ways, I think that Ani's dissertation research is a wonderful distillation of the kinds of things we all aspire to here at the Nicholas School. So today, Ani is continuing to make sure that her work informs the management and conservation of dolphins in the Chesapeake. She's serving as a member of a federal take reduction team. She's continuing to work with managers, haranguing managers to make sure that the voices of the people on the water make their way into the management system. It's remarkable to me that the dolphins of the Chesapeake and the Potomac have been overlooked by federal management for nearly half a century. And Ani is making sure that we right that wrong. I'm really proud of you. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to use my prerogative as a host and deviate from the program a little bit to recognize a soon-to-be graduate who has done a lot for our program, for our PhD programs in our school, and that is Dr. Andy Reid, who will be graduating from the directorship of the Marine Lab this June and going on a well-oiled sabbatical. I understand he'll be researching a question that has troubled him for a long time, where the oxygen of our atmosphere is coming from. So Andy, good luck. Thank you for your service to our PhD program and the Marine Lab. I now call on Dr. Erica Weinthal to recognize our graduate from the University Program in Environmental Policy.
I actually have a long and a short version, so I guess I did. Okay, I'll try to do the short. Um, so outside, there's a bunch of people who are waiting for us, with the reception, and I basically said, I'm going to have a really hard time talking about Dr. Gabriela Nagel-Alverio today, that I wouldn't really be able to capture everything she is as a scholar. And what I was told outside was just go off script, which I probably will not do, but all I would have to do is say she's a rock star. So the person out there knows I am quoting verbatim, but I'm going to start with a few adjectives that I actually did write down to describe Gabriela. Simply brilliant, accomplished, thoughtful, innovative, busy, upbeat, and very kind. And with all of that, I have to say she makes at least me feel like a slacker and many of us others. Within the 6 years that she's been at Duke, she has managed to complete both a JD and a PhD. So she is both a lawyer and a doctor. And during that time, she's also served as the editor-in-chief of the Duke Law Journal, which is no easy feat. And she has co-led the UN climate change negotiations practicum at the Nicholas School. So my role in Gabriela's career is actually quite small. I just co-advised her PhD. She defended her dissertation this spring, which is entitled Climate Migration, Justice from Individual Decision to Legal Protection. It is a 3-article dissertation that broadly explored how structural conditions shape climate mobility. I want to say about this dissertation, it really presents the human face and the consequences of climate change. It forces us to look at how individuals decide to migrate, and often in certain cases are forced to migrate. Gabriela is also simply a humanist in her work, and that comes through in her dissertation work. She's carried out extensive field work in Guatemala, interviewing migrants. And while carrying out her dissertation research, she has also received numerous accolades along the way that have allowed her to carry out other research projects. One was that we got to collaborate on with the U.S. Institute for Peace grant on climate, environment, and conflict, where we got to look at urban migration across 3 different regions. But I want to note, and I hope the dean doesn't get mad at me, but I'm going to just note that the most important accolade at the end of her time at the Nicholas School, I think is the most fitting because she will soon get this award for a PhD manuscript on protecting climate migrants, which is coming out in the Environment Law Reporter, might already be there. But it is really a way that captures who Gabriela is because she's been able to combine her legal work with her policy work and really look at the global legal structures that are absent for the protection of climate migrants and trying to look at alternative pathways that are available for people displaced by climate change. And this is really where I see Gabriela continuing to work, both in the policy space and the legal space. Upon graduation, Gabriela is going to return to Covington and Burling as an environmental law associate, and then she's going on to clerk for a judge. And so, I expect at some point she's going to have a job in a law school, but we'll see. But I want to also just note by ending with congratulations to her parents, who I know have been her biggest supporters throughout her time here at Duke, and also Zach, who has been by her side the whole time, and they also, too, will be getting married very soon, so congratulations. And it's been, yes, congratulations to both of you. It is an absolute pleasure, delight to be part of your journey.
Okay, don't go too far, Gabriella. Let's just give one more round of applause to all of our amazing graduates. I know people are probably starting to get hungry for that reception, but we have a few important awards we'd like to bestow as we move to the last part of our ceremony for today. So as Dean of the Nicholas School of the Environment, I have the privilege of giving the Dean's Award for Outstanding Graduate Student Manuscript, which recognizes outstanding research and writing done by current PhD students. I really love this award because I get to read the amazing work that's being conducted by our doctoral students. The choices are always really difficult, and we really had some outstanding contenders this year. I also extend my sincere congratulations to all the nominees and wish to thank all the faculty for submitting such wonderful nominations, including the fact that you were able to explain what these folks were doing across all these different fields. To the environmental economist, that's Dean. There were no econ manuscripts this year, so they were all outside my field, and I really appreciated getting a chance to learn more about what everyone was doing. Each winner is going to receive a cash prize and a framed certificate, and this year we have two winners. The first you've already heard about, but we will welcome back up Gabriella Nagel Alvario. Her paper is Protecting Climate Migrants. The article, according to her nominator, which was Erica, is methodologically rigorous in its comparative legal analysis and deeply grounded in the empirical realities of climate displacement that Gabriella has studied throughout her doctoral research, including original fieldwork in Guatemala. Climate change impacts have already forced communities from their homelands. In the next 25 years, could see hundreds of millions of climate migrants. A portion of those will cross into nations where they have no legal protections. Some advocates have attempted to expand legal protections for climate displaced individuals, but a robust analysis of outcomes and successful strategies had been lacking. Gabriella's paper fills that gap. Drawing on two comprehensive legal databases of climate migration cases, Gabriella examined 31 decisions spanning 6 continents and more than a dozen legal systems to map available legal pathways for climate displaced persons. The analysis reveals that promising pathways for climate migrants have evolved amid obstacles. Notably, judicial doctrine has shifted in ways that could benefit climate migrants in the future. This paper also provides a framework for advocates working to further expand legal protections for climate displaced individuals. As Erica already mentioned, the paper has been accepted for publication in the Environmental Law Reporter, one of the longest running and most prominent environmental law journals. Congratulations, Gabriella. Economists are apparently also rules followers. I go forward when she tells me to. Okay, our second winner is Basil Senso. Is Basil here? There he is. For the paper Environmental Drivers of Parasitic Nematode Infection in Wild Ungulates in the Serengeti National Park. So a little different. Basil's manuscript represents an exceptional contribution to the field of disease ecology and exemplifies the Nicholas School's strengths in climate, ecology, and health research, according to his nominator. Parasitic diseases play an important role in ecosystems by affecting host behavior, fitness, and population dynamics. Although seasonality often corresponds with parasitic infection patterns, the underlying drivers are poorly understood. For his study, Basil examined how environmental variability and parasite development relate to parasitic infections in African antelopes. He focused on 2 types of parasites with different life cycles, an intestinal parasite that relies on a single host, and a lungworm that needs 2 hosts to complete its life cycle. Combining fieldwork, remote sensing data, and advanced statistical modeling, Basil found that intestinal parasite infections in antelopes peaked during the wet season, while lungworm infections peaked in the dry season. Lungworm infections were also strongly associated with precipitation and antelope population size. By contrast, intestinal parasite infections showed only weak associations with environmental factors. The findings indicate that environmental drivers alone are insufficient to predict parasitic disease dynamics without accounting for parasitic life cycles. Basil's published his winning paper in the International Journal for Parasitology this past January. Congratulations. All right, next it gives me the great pleasure to present the Norm Christensen Faculty Award for Excellence in Mentoring Doctoral Students. This award was established to recognize the dedicated career of Professor and founding Dean of the Nicholas School, Norm Christensen, who championed our doctoral students, who had high expectations for our students, and who held the school accountable for the education that our students received. This award celebrates and honors the exemplary mentoring that lies at the core of this school's doctoral programs. The award particularly recognizes the use of culturally inclusive mentoring practices, commitment to advancing students' long-term professional development, and creation of a supportive environment by fostering mutual respect. As former dean and professor emeritus Norm Christensen has said, quote, "Mentoring is not about teaching. It is first and foremost about listening very carefully. It's about understanding the goals and aspirations of your mentee, as well as their context and constraints. It's not telling someone how to get to a destination. It's about helping them discover the route," end quote. So I'm thrilled to announce that Dr. Shenang Hu, and I think I've been pronouncing his name wrong all these years, but Prasad told me it's Shenang and not Shenang. So, okay, Dr. Shenang Hu, Assistant Professor of Climate Dynamics, Division of Earth and Climate Sciences, has been awarded the 2026 Norm Christensen Faculty Award for Excellence in Mentoring Doctoral Students. So 3 students, all Dr. Hu's PhD advisees, nominated him for the Norm Christensen Faculty Award for Excellence in Mentoring Doctoral Students in recognition of his exceptional student-centered mentorship. Shenang's advising philosophy emphasizes listening, individualized guidance, and helping students discover paths aligned with their unique strengths. Quote, "As doctoral students, we have experienced a mentor who truly understands that mentoring is first and foremost about listening," end quote. Our advisor does not tell us how to get to a destination. He helps. Look, did they just quote Norm Christensen back? The route that best fits our unique talents. Letter writers praise Shenang for his accessibility and commitment to regular one-on-one and group meetings that foster both academic progress and open dialogue. Quote, "The foundation of our advisor's success is his accessibility," end quote. Dr. Hu creates a supportive environment where students feel comfortable exploring challenges and redefining their research directions, an approach that has directly contributed to student success, including published work. Quote, "He creates a safe environment where we can admit when a path isn't working," end quote. Beyond research, Shenang actively supports students' broader professional development, encouraging pursuits such as entrepreneurship programs and facilitating international collaboration opportunities. Quote, "He values our growth as multifaceted professionals over mere research output," end quote. Shenang's mentoring is described as inclusive and adaptable, supporting diverse backgrounds and career goals across academia, industry, and beyond. Quote, "In every interaction, Shenang demonstrates culturally inclusive mentoring by respecting our diverse backgrounds and individual career goals. He has the rare ability to see who we are as individuals and the patience to help us find our own way," end quote. Please join me in congratulating Shenang on this well-deserved recognition. Okay, last but certainly not least, I have the pleasure to announce the Karen Khrushchev Staff Award for Excellence in Mentoring Students. This award was established in 2023 to recognize the incredible career of the late Karen Khrushchev, the longtime assistant dean and director of the school's Career and Professional Development Center. Quote, "Karen was a true champion of our students and alumni and influenced the careers of thousands of students during her 27 years at the Nicholas School." This award allows students to recognize the considerable efforts of full-time staff who consistently invest their time and attention in mentoring of students. It gives me great pleasure to announce that Corey Walston Senior Program Coordinator within the Student Services Office, has been awarded the Karen Kirchhoff Staff Award for excellence in mentoring students. Corey, can you please join me on the stage? I think you can tell already that she's beloved by the students who've had the privilege of working with her. The students that nominated, I'm not going to look over there because then I'm going to start crying. The students that nominated Corey for the Karen Kirchhoff Staff Award for providing, quote, an unwavering source of support for our doctoral community, end quote. The nomination noted that Corey is always helpful. Her door is always open and no challenge is too complicated for her to take on. They also highlighted her ability to get things done. Corey has extraordinary patience and resourcefulness. She is skilled navigating logistics that would have been impossible for a student to manage alone. Finally, the nominators expressed gratitude for Corey's efforts to build a Nicholas School PhD student community. Corey actively fosters community by bringing students from different cohorts together and creating a sense of belonging that helps us through tough times. And I will just add personally that I know that Corey took on this role in difficult times, went way above and beyond what was in her original job description, was extraordinarily patient with HR bureaucracy that took a long time to correct. I am personally deeply grateful for her dedication to these amazing PhD students and to the Nicholas School. Please join me in offering Corey our heartfelt congratulations on this well-deserved honor.
Okay, it's my great pleasure to wrap this up and move us on with a few remarks and then some instructions about how we transition to the next part. First of all, I just want to say I love this event. I should say I'm Lisa Campbell. I'm from the Marine Lab, representing faculty from the coast. Hi. I'm always amazed by the variety of projects that students work on, the variety of faculty approaches to honoring their students, and it really just makes me think what a crazy place this is, the Nicholas School of Environment, one I'm really proud to be a part of. To our graduates, I'm going to say this just again, congratulations, and I'm just going to warn you that you are going to be congratulated ad nauseum over the course of what is a Duke University graduation weekend, right? It's a marathon, so dig deep and get ready. But really, congratulations, and I just want to encourage you, rather than getting a little bit cynical about that, to really lean in and revel in it for at least the next couple of days, like imposter syndrome, be gone. Because you have done something really difficult and extraordinary. Lori and I both get into these stats, but under 2% of the US population holds a PhD. You've spent the last 5 years, more or less, surrounded by other people doing the same thing or have already done it. So you don't really get it like that it's not really normal. And you've probably wondered why you decided to do it some point along that route, but here we are, so that's great. What did it take? Intellectual curiosity to ask meaningful and important questions, intelligence and skill to do the work required to tackle those questions, the drive to keep at it, especially when things didn't go as planned, tenacity, mostly needed to get the attention of your advisor when they were distracted, humility to ask for help when you were stuck, and self-awareness or perhaps self-preservation to know when you needed to take a break. So I trust that those characteristics will remain intact and are perhaps even a little bit stronger. And at this particular time in 2026, I also hope that your experience has enhanced your love of knowledge, strengthened your belief in the academy and the role that it plays in our society, and really stoked your commitment to defending that. So I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge, this is also boot camp, right? So I'm going to acknowledge the staff, the people who helped along the way, the advisors, mentors, lab members, undergraduate research assistants. Let's even include reviewer number 2 who trashed your first manuscript, but made you a better person. But then we need to move on, and this is the boot camp part, to family, friends, pets, all those extra parts of your life that have helped you get here. Family and friends, you too need to dig deep and be ready, because you will be thanked and recognized over and over again this weekend. And please hear that with the sincerity that it's meant. But it's only Friday morning, and you're it's new, right? So we haven't quite worn you down yet. We're working on it. I know that I can count on you all right now to dig deep and give our graduates one really raucous round of applause. Okay, that's enough. Thank you. You're so good at this. You really don't need coaching. You'll be fine. That concludes our formal ceremony. So now I get to tell you what to do. We're going to ask that graduates remain seated while friends, family, any hidden pets make their way out to the reception, right? The staff will guide you on where you're supposed to go. And please go ahead and get a glass from one of the tables in the reception areas. Because what's going to happen then is the graduates will emerge en masse and be organized for the famous photo on the staircase. Have your cameras ready. And following that, we'll have a brief toast. The buffet will be there, snacks, and we will move on to the next event. But thank you very much for this. So family and friends, follow the directions of staff out to the reception area. Graduates, stay here.